Hello everyone, back to today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for next week to 10 days for today's second video. This is going to take us to around the 20th of November, and actually we'll be able to go a little bit beyond that with the GFS, which of course runs to 2 weeks. We'll also have a look at the end of the video at CFS V2 for the next 4 weeks. Been a couple of developments there since we did January Friday yesterday. So I'll get on with that for you very shortly, just to say that today's first video was a weekend forecast. And it looks like it's going to be turning increasingly dry and mild, in fact warm, through the course of this coming week. The second half of the week could see temperatures up to the mid to upper teens Celsius. So turning very mild for a time later on this week. Possibly cooler again by next weekend. And we will pick up the storyline beyond that for today's second video update. Just to say that coming up this evening, if I've got time, so I've got to get the 11th winter update together. But if I have time this evening around 7 o'clock, I'm hoping to do an ensembles watch. First one of the season. Going through all members of the GFS ensembles just to see what they're showing for the next couple of weeks. If I have time, that'll be with you around 7 o'clock this evening, hopefully. So I'll get on with today's second video update right now. We're going to start off by having a look at the central England temperatures. So provisional from Hadley, the CET, up to yesterday, 9th of November, we're standing at 9.6, an anomaly of 1.7 degrees above average. So it really has been a very mild sort of first week to 10 days of November, to say the least. And that's probably going to level off at that sort of level in the next few days. But then it will increase further, I would have thought, towards the end of the week. So it'll probably go above 10 degrees Celsius by the time we get through to the middle part of November. But where we go after that, be interesting to see. Will we just stay at that level? Will we decline it very gradually? Or could we actually have a collapse of the CET in the final week or so of the month if we start to draw in some colder air from the east? That will be very interesting to see how that plays out. But a very mild first 10 days to November anyway. These are the 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts from the Penn State University for the next week to 10 days. We've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS, which we'll have a look in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80 feet. Is an area in the atmosphere, high pressure, low pressure, are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Blue extrapolates to low pressure and red to high pressure. So you're going to take us to around the 20th of November. We see back to with the ECMWF, we've got this deep area of below average heights in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. But then we've got this huge ridge, almost like a wall of high pressure, sitting to our east and also extending up to the north. So we've got quite a strong jet stream coming out across America, across the Atlantic, and it's doing something a little bit like that, but also sending some of the energy down there as well underneath this ridge. If this ridge goes much further north, if this ridge starts to push just that little bit further north, to come centered more around there, we'll take the energy underneath it. And then that would start to pull in properly cold air from the east. So at the moment, just on a knife edge, it's not particularly cold, but it is quite blocked. Just a very subtle adjustment north with that high pressure would start to run the energy of the jet stream and the low pressure areas from the Atlantic underneath the high into Spain, Portugal and the Med, and would start to open the door to colder air from the east and from the northeast. GFS is very similar, so again we have this wall of high pressure sitting just to the east of the UK. We've got the below average heights with this deep trough in the Atlantic. Again, the jet stream is coming out of America across the Atlantic like that, and then sending some of the energy up there, but some of it is also going down here around this cutoff low just to our south. Again, if we was to move this high pressure just that little bit further north, push it up towards there, become centered in that sort of area, then all of the energy will start to run underneath it into southern parts of Europe. So up to 10 days, we're still under high pressure sitting over and just to the east of the UK. Starting to bring in cooler air from off the continent, yes. Nothing desperately cold showing up within the next 10 days. That takes us to the 20th of November, though, of course. And where we go out beyond the 20th of November, where we go into the final 10 days of the month, is going to be quite interesting to see. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. As I say, I'm hoping to do an ensembles watch this evening. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. Look at Sheffield in the north of England today. So starting off close to or a little bit above average with the upper air temperatures for the next few days. Then from the second half, from middle into second half of the week and next weekend, we get this big push up in the upper air temperatures. It becomes very mild with the upper air temperatures. And then we see we are sliding the temperatures down, but we have got a big split. So in the extended range, which takes us into the final week of November, we've got several ensemble members that are staying above the red line, that are mild. Several ensemble members that are going below the red line, and they're bringing in colder air as well. The trend, which is the ensemble mean, of the ensemble, the trend of the ensemble, which is depicted by the ensemble mean, I should say, which is the white line, that is declining through to the final week of November. So within the GFS ensemble, it appears to be favouring a drop in temperature from this really mild level that we've got coming up at the end of this week to something quite a lot cooler by the final week of November. But how cold this gets through the final week of November, it does remain to be seen. Will it just turn cooler and we have frost and fog, or will we actually start to bring in some genuinely cold air from sort of northern Europe, from Russia, possibly from the Arctic? Or will we start to bring in genuinely cold air through the final week of November? It remains to be seen. I'm going to go through each individual member of the GFS ensembles this evening, hopefully. Remember, all the ensemble members are depicted by an individual coloured line, if you like. So we'll go through them all this evening at around 7 o'clock, and we'll see what each individual GFS ensemble member is showing for this final week of November. See the options that are on the table. Certainly the next week is going to be mild, so temperature anomalies from the 10th to the 18th of November are forecast to be milder than average for the UK, for Ireland, for all of Northern Europe, coming out much milder than average in the week ahead. The precipitation anomaly looks pretty dry again for the UK and for Ireland too. Of course, I didn't talk about precipitation here, so let's just mention that very quickly on the GFS ensembles. Basically, it's looking really dry right the way through towards the final week of the month. Very little precipitation for the time of year, for the middle of November. That is an exceptionally dry ensemble. Right, back to the anomalies. So we are looking at another drier than average week from the 10th to the 18th of November. Precipitation anomalies come out drier than average. So mild or warm and dry really in the week ahead. Over in America, very different story though. Look at this. The central and eastern parts of the states really cold, much colder than average in the week ahead from the 10th to the 18th of November. So winter is biting there. Even down into these far southern states, we find temperature anomalies coming out much, much cooler than average. In the west and the northwest, it's a milder scene up there, but down in the eastern part and the southern part of America, much, much colder than average. Precipitation anomalies looking like that. Generally quite dry across most parts of America, and these western states also, of course, you've probably been hearing about the wildfires in California. It looks like we're going to keep things much drier than average there in the week ahead. So the precipitation anomaly from the 10th to the 18th of November, much drier than average on that western side of America. No leaving of the fires from a rainfall perspective, certainly. In the east and the southeast, it's a bit wetter than average there. So where it's cold in the south and the east of America, it's also more unsettled as well. Presumably, some of that further north could be falling as snow. So, coming back closer to home, this is how things are looking on Tuesday. We're bringing in this westerly flow with the GFS through the course of next week. High pressure gradually gets to the ascendancy, so we get through to next weekend. High pressure is dominating weather. We saw it on the height anomaly flow charts. A wall of high pressure building to the east of the country, with this low pressure becoming stuck out in the Atlantic. Initially, through Thursday, Friday, we're bringing up the air from North Africa and the Mediterranean, so it'll be very mild, if not locally warm. By next weekend, we're just starting to push those southerlies out to the west of the UK, and we're actually starting to draw up the air more from sort of central parts of Europe. It's a very subtle difference, but it could make quite an important difference to the feel of the weather from the end of this coming week, when temperatures are likely to be around 16 or 17 degrees Celsius, to next weekend, when temperatures could well fall down back towards where they should be at this time of year, back towards average, which is kind of like 7 to 12 degrees, something. A little bit like that. Certainly, I think it's going to turn cooler by next weekend. Maybe with quite a bit of fog as well. Now, in the extended range, we start to move that high pressure northwards. So we get to day 10 on this latest GFS run, the 6 o'clock run. And, well, we've certainly pushed out high pressure much further north. It's centering itself over Scandinavia. It also backs into Russia up here as well. And it does extend a little bit to the north of the UK towards the Norwegian Sea. So this is turning the wind from a southeasterly into actually more or less an easterly, moving in from off the continent. That will be a lot cooler by day 10. We'd be seeing temperatures, I would have thought we'd be seeing temperatures struggling to get into double digits pretty much in all areas, probably bringing in a lot of low cloud and murk from off the North Sea, but would definitely be a much cooler feel to things. In the extended range, we stay very blocked, so this takes us into the final week of November, where we've got this large area of high pressure extending from Russia through Scandinavia. It's extending to the north of Scotland as well. It is trying to get towards Iceland and Greenland as well. So that's a big blocking area of high pressure that we've got going on there. There's no particular cold source of air. That, I suppose, is the saving grace, or if you want it cold, that is the downside. There's no particular cold source of air across Europe at this point, but it would certainly be pretty chilly, and it would certainly be a lot cooler than it's going to be in the coming days. That's how we end up with this GFS run, which is Monday the 26th of November. The high pressure is actually retrogressing a little bit. It's starting to move out of Scandinavia and it's trying to get itself over towards Greenland. So we've got this high pressure to the north of the country. Around the back of the high, we are now beginning to drop much colder air down into northeastern parts of Europe. If we have a quick look at the upper air temperatures, you can see we have actually imported some quite cold air at this point into the UK already, but we've got some really cold upper air temperatures just starting to move down into the north of Scandinavia and the west of Russia on the back side of this high pressure. Obviously, if we was to stay in this pattern for a couple more days, we would see these very cold upper air temperatures flooding down into northeastern parts of Europe. And of course, if the east to northeasterly flow was maintained, we would probably start to bat that in towards the west of Europe as well. So that is just on the edges. By the very end of that GFS run, it's just on the edges of producing something really quite notably cold for the final days of November. The ECMWF is looking like this, and again we've got this flat westerly flow on Tuesday before we raise heights to our south and east to the end of the week. There's those warm southerly winds moving up from southern Europe. We go into extended range. Again, we're trying to build that high pressure up towards Scandinavia, you'll notice. So that's how we look as we get again towards day 10. This is Monday 19th of November. High pressure is in over Scandinavia. Low pressure is out to west of the UK, so quite a battle is going on here between the high pressure wants to bring the easterly winds and the low pressure in the Atlantic wants to produce those westerly winds. That's how we finish up at day 10. So again, we've got this wall of high pressure sitting to our east across northern Europe. Again, cold air from the east is trying to be fed in. Low pressure in the Atlantic just a little bit too strong to allow that in, although it does look as though we might be starting to stall that low pressure and send some of the energy to the south. It would be interesting if we could roll on another day or so from that. Unfortunately, we can only go to day 10 with the ECM. Would be interesting if we could roll on another day or so, whether that would place us into an easterly wind. Upper air temperatures with the ECMWF still relatively mild up to day 10. You'll notice across the central parts of Europe, though, it is starting to become quite a bit colder. GEM then looking like that. So again, it's a case of building the ridge up through the end of the week. Very mild conditions initially for Thursday and Friday, albeit there might be fog, which would limit temperature potential if fog does form. We won't know until closer to the time frame whether we're going to get fog at the end of the week and into next weekend under this area of high pressure. Then the GEM takes that high pressure up to Scandinavia in the more extended range. This is Sunday, 18th of November. We've got a proper Scandinavian high then. We've lost the southerly. We've replaced it with an easterly. So that's cooler air moving in from the east. Notice I say cooler, not colder at this point, but certainly cooler air is moving in from the east next weekend. And then in the more extended range, we just need to look increasingly blocked again really with the GEM. So we do still keep some of the high pressure over Scandinavia and back to Russia. We're also building ridging in the northern Atlantic and starting to move it up towards Greenland. And it looks like we're on the edge of producing something quite a lot colder there with the GEM by the time we get through to day 10. So today's models are really going to town on this high pressure building up over Scandinavia and possibly getting into a very blocked situation indeed. I mean, the GFS, if we just go back to that, that's quite an extraordinary chart really, because it is exceptionally blocked, blocking from Scandinavia, blocking to the north of Scotland, blocking going over towards Iceland and Greenland, and also extending a little bit beyond Greenland in towards the Atlantic side of Canada. So a huge amount of blocking is going on there, and it takes quite a long while to get out of that, I have to say. If the weather did progress, the weather pattern did progress in that kind of situation, it would take quite a while to get out of that. And I would suspect we'd get a cold start to December at any rate from that kind of situation. It's very extended though, that. But all of the models are increasing the blocking signal, including the CFS V2, interestingly. So just finished with that. These are the 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods. The first week period will take us from the 10th to the 16th of November with the above average heights to our east, the below average heights in the Atlantic to the west, the flow and the jet going like that. So we're going to get these warm southerly winds coming up in the next few days. Then we go through to week 2. It's the 17th to 23rd of November. The below average heights are being pushed further back into the Atlantic as the area of high pressure to our east is taking over pattern. That's turning the wind from that southerly into more of a southeasterly, starting to feed cooler air in from off the Atlantic. Week 3 then moves that high pressure to Scandinavia. This is the 24th to the 30th of November with high pressure in over Scandinavia, low pressure becoming cut off to our south. Colder air would be moving in from the east with that situation for the last week of November. And then look how we finish up. This is the 1st to the 7th of November with blocking over Greenland and extending back into the North Pole, a large area of high pressure there. Below average heights, low pressure to the south. That's trying to bring milder air up from the south, of course. But then we've got the high pressure to the north, which is trying to feed colder air in from the northeast. So there's quite a battle going on there. And that, I have to say, and I hope no one gets too excited about this because it is week 4, I have to say that is a kind of situation that could lead to snow as this milder air is trying to feed up from the south with the cold air over Greenland, trying to push the Arctic air and Siberian air down to the country. There'd be a weather front in the middle with that area of below average heights. A battle takes place as the cold air meets the mild air, and that might be some snow through the first week of November if it was to pan out like that. It's week 4 though, so it's very unreliable. Temperature anomalies for the next week, the 10th, 16th of November, much milder than average, warm even. Then we go through to week 2, and it also looks much milder than average. I would suspect this is a cooler week because the air is coming in off the continent, but the model is still forecasting quite a warm week there. Then we go through to week 3, it's the 24th to the 30th of November, and we're going a bit cooler than average. Notice these colder than average temperature anomalies across Eastern Europe are seeping west into the west of Europe, and some of that is actually getting into the UK, especially England and Wales. And then we're into week 4, which is the 1st to the 7th of November, close to average. So again, we've got that low pressure to the south that's trying to feed up those milder winds from the south, but we've got the high pressure blocking around Greenland, trying to feed that colder air into the UK. Have to say, it does look as though the end of November and the start of December could be significantly colder. So it's all going to get very, very interesting. Yes, the next few days are going to have these southerly winds and very mild or even locally warm temperatures. But as I say in the videos, southerly is not a safe direction. Southerly winds are not safe in the winter from cold weather, because although they might be mild initially, and that's what we are going to get in the next few days, they can very, very easily go from southerlies to southeasterlies and then eventually to easterlies. And the difference from a southerly to an easterly at this time of year is going to be very dramatic indeed. So we could well see a cold end to November, possibly, if that high pressure gets to Greenland, lasting into the beginning of December. It's a case of watch this space and we'll see how this evolves. As I say, we're hoping to do Ensemble's Watch this evening for the first time this season, and then tomorrow we've got the 11th Winter 2018-19 update, and also a Christmas update will be with you tomorrow as well. Keep checking back to website for all of the updates. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.